The Harris Group is known throughout the UK and Ireland as a leader in the commercial vehicle sector. One of Ireland's most respected and long-established automotive distributors, the Harris Group has developed an unrivaled reputation for service excellence, which comes from more than 50 years of experience. Moreover, the Harris Group is now the distributor of Maxus and LDV, who provide a range of 100% electric vans in the UK, Ireland, Channel Islands, Isle of Man, Malta and Cyprus. So John, how's everything going there with yourself and the Harris Group?
Well, it's an excellent question, Jack. It depends which time of the day or which day you call me, because the situation changes literally by the day as we deal with this pandemic. And if we deal with, well, I suppose the pandemic is also covering up issues with Brexit and stuff like that, even the general issues with the economy. But you get through it. That's what we're here for. That's what you take the mantle on of these particular type of roles. My colleagues out there in the industry will be no different. That there's decision makers needed in the business, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and look, kind of going back to what you just said there, like what have been some of the major challenges you've had to face since your appointment as the Director of Operations since kind of November 2017?
Yeah. Do you remember David Moyes took over from Alex Ferguson?
I do.
Yeah, well, now you see some of the challenges I face, because if you take over in a company, a PLC, you're replacing somebody in a role that's been in it for quite a period of time, put his own stamp on it. But those type of companies are used to change. They're used to people coming in and out. That's the carriers of this world, and companies like that. In my situation, you took over from a legend, literally a legend, who built up a business, and there was an air of mystique about him as well. So you're sitting in that chair, I'll tell you something for nothing. That's a hard act to follow. So you look at the challenges. So your immediate challenge, I suppose, is your colleagues, your people, the people that actually look up to you now. Are you going to do the same style of management? You're going to make the same decisions. So you're always measured against the great man. So your own people, the people you work with every day, you got to build those confidences in that I'm not the same kind of guy. My style is going to be different. My view in the business is probably going to be different. And it's just the main challenge, along with everything else in the business, to reinvent it is to actually bring your colleagues and the people that are working with you, bring them on the journey and encourage them to believe in the journey. That's probably one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, and so do you think you kind of learned from individuals such as Pino Harris? Did they teach you a lot, do you think, or was it more kind of a on-the-job learning?
Well, I never had the pleasure of working with him. I came into the business after he passed away. So I suppose anecdotally I would have learned stuff from him over the years. I knew him. I didn't know him very well, but I knew him, and you learn from the stories. But look, every day is a school day. It's an old saying that a lot of people just pay lip service to, but it actually is true. Every day is a school day. I'm still learning.
And look, you kind of you came in at a very difficult time as well, particularly at the minute. So, what have been some of the challenges the Harris Group have had to face? What have become apparent recently?
Well, if you look at it, the Harris Group is synonymous with one product, which is Hino, or Hino as people, the real name for it, which is a Japanese product. A Pino brought in the 60s back into Ireland here and made an absolutely huge success of it. But unfortunately, the Hino product was not going to be available. They saw Europe as over-regulated, and unfortunately, they stopped bringing that product here. So we had to really reinvent the business. So along with his passing, which was a massive blow here to the business itself had to find a new range of products. Now, he was on that journey prior to his passing, but it was my job then to keep that going. We have a new headquarters to get that move done, and all those particular challenges in reinventing ourselves and reorganising and restructuring ourselves added to COVID, added to Brexit, added to everything. One of our biggest markets is the UK. So yeah, it's been a bit of an avalanche of challenges, but you just face up to them. You deal with them.
Yeah, of course.
That's what you're here for.
Yeah. And
Don't be frightened by them. Challenges are not something you should be frightened by, Jack. Challenges are there to make you stronger, make your business stronger.
yeah, good. Well, it's an interesting perspective. So, do you kind of think that you adopted this mentality from working for other large multinationals such as Kerry and Wincanton? And did they kind of help shape your decision to move to the Harris Group, or were there other reasons?
Um, yeah, when you're working with the like of the Kerrys of this world and the Wincantons of this world, especially the Kerrys, by God, you learn something. An incredible organisation. If you look at the sheer scale of it and the growth of the Kerry Group, which during a recession, improves profits. It increases overall turnover, new business, new opportunities, new products. No fear whatsoever. And I swore when I joined Kerry that I wouldn't become Kerry-sized, right? But they just creep into you. It gets into your blood. They don't try and do it. It's your colleagues. It's working in that environment. It seeps into you, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're totally driven in the Kerry way. So did I learn from them? Well, like I said, Jack, you learn from the cradle to the grave. So I learned in what made me hungry. I suppose coming from a working class background in the country in the 70s, born in 1958. So you can look at. I was doing my leaving cert in 1976. And at a different time, if you had a good leaving cert, you got a good job. Now a leaving cert is not. It's only a stepping stone. But it was a different time, and maybe the opportunities weren't there. So you made the best of everything you could get. So I was always driven, I suppose, to look at the grass was always greener across the other side of the fence. Kerry was a great employer, but to get an opportunity like this, to sit into a great man's chair like that, I mean, you don't get those opportunities, and you can't leave them behind you. So does Kerry and Wincanton prepare you for the next stage of a journey? Of course it does. Every job prepares you. Your apprenticeship does it. Your like I say, your leaving cert does it. So every day is a school day.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting to note. So kind of since you've been working for the Harris Group, a lot of new kind of technologies and process and innovations have come along. So would you mind talking to me a bit more about the distribution of the LDV range and a bit more generally about commercial electric vehicles?
Well, you're right. Okay, so there's part of our refocus back from the days when was so focused on the construction industry and your 8-wheeler tipper and your 8-wheeler cement bottles and stuff like that. So yeah, now we're into the area of the company refocusing what we do and where we go. So our markets are basically with the Chinese products is any right-hand drive market. That's Malta, Gibraltar, Cyprus, all the usual stuff. But the UK. But it's the electric vehicle, the technology. But the Chinese were, the R&D department was a joke. Everyone realised that R&D in China meant replicate and duplicate. No, now it's actually R&D, research and development, and they innovate now. They don't just copy. Yes, there's still a certain amount of that, but some of the technology they bring in there, especially in relation to EV and new fuels like hydrogen and the hydrogen cells, is incredible. They are so far ahead of the Europeans. And that's what we're bringing. The new generation of electric vehicles. We've a new electric 8-meter bus here. It's a service vehicle, an incredible vehicle. It has astounded people on when they've actually tested it in the UK to see how good it is. The charging times now are just so small compared to some of our competitors. Some of them are taking 6 hours, and we're down to about an hour and 20 minutes, and a range of over 300 kilometres. And considerably cheaper. But it works, and it's extremely efficient, and the technology is there, and they're improving on it. We're building 2 12-meter service vehicles now in China, which we know are going to be game changers. The electric vehicle range in SIAC, again, the battery technology alone. But we actually have gone one step further as well. We are now CATL agents here in Ireland, so we can now repair the batteries and service the batteries here. So where before that people just take a battery and concerned about the life of the battery. Oh, it's going to cost me 20 grand for a battery in 10 years' time. No, it's not. Because we can actually repair them here. And it's all individual cells. It's a couple hundred quid a cell. So that's gone now. That fear is over. And it can be done here on the NS road. You don't have to send it to Germany. You don't have to send it to UK. As a matter of fact, UK to repair them here.
Mm.
So that's the difference here, and that's where the Harris Group is moving into a different focus. Even our parts departments here, who had been solely reliant on the Hino product again, we're now an all-makes program. We've doubled our turnover in the parts department, and we don't just focus on a single product. We're offering people a range of products. We source them in Europe. We are breaking our reliance again on UK in preparation for Brexit, and sourcing products in the UK, sourcing products in Europe, in Turkey, and not just going to China and saying it's cheap and cheerful. No, it's quality products on the shelf here, available. Literally, we can have it on your shelf the next morning.
It's interesting now, just to the commercial vehicle kind of aspect.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to people before, and they say the demand is often there, but unfortunately in Ireland, one of the kind of ongoing issue was that the infrastructure at the minute isn't here to support the demand. You know, I've been on to many individuals relating to this about EV charging stations and ports, and it's often that, you know, the demand is here, but the infrastructure to support this demand isn't. Do you think that's true, or do you think it's changing, or what's your kind of thoughts?
It's true to a certain extent, and it is changing, but people need to talk. Jack, one of our biggest problems here, that we have little islands doing their own thing. So, for instance, we supply vehicles into a company, and somebody else is responsible for the charging systems. So the guy that's getting the vehicles and the guy that's getting the charging systems, sometimes they don't talk. So the Chinese, again, they supply the vehicle. But look at the charging systems they have available out there. It's incredible, the technology. Contactless charging. You know, you just drive over a pad and it charges the vehicle. They have that available. But they look in the wrong places sometimes. Now, the infrastructure here will have to improve for electric if we take it serious. If everyone went electric in the morning, we just wouldn't be able to do it. But that is improving. The technology is improving. The technology with the batteries is improving. The charging systems itself. I mean, our vehicles are fitted with balance charging, which is incredibly efficient in that it identifies cells in the actual battery pack that need a little extra. So it's doing all that in the background, and you don't even see it. We now, with the buses, for instance, it's called a steed. We can actually see that remotely. We can tell you when there's a problem coming, and some of it we can actually repair. Literally send a message down to the bus and it'll repair a problem as it goes along. So it's there. The technology is there, and it's our job to embrace. And you're right. There's people here, unfortunately, in this country over the years, just got a product in, sold it. You know, did their best to support it, have their parts of it, but we have a brand new training school here. We've built a training school for this. Unfortunately, COVID, yes, means we will have to do a lot more virtual training in that, but we're gearing up for that. That's not a problem. And we will have dedicated training for these EV vehicles, and we can put it into the dealer network and show the guys, get master technicians sorted out, get guys to know how exactly, because we know how to fix them here. So we can teach them how to do it. So I don't worry about that. The support is here now, and we intend to build on that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because you do need to look towards the future and say that this probably is the new kind of technology, this movement towards electric vehicles, and it's just about supporting them. So, like, that's just my take, but, you know, what does the future hold for yourself personally and the Harris Group more generally?
Future holds personally for me, well, I suppose I'm lucky. There's a lot of people out there at the moment in this country and around the world that have no future either, due to, you know, the incredible difference that COVID has brought to their lives, because they've got it, and their health is just completely either, you know, people unfortunately have died, but also the after effects of COVID, and their lives are decimated. But also the fact that people have lost their jobs over it. So, first of all, I'm grateful I have a future. The future for here is incredibly bright. You're talking about EV. Well, what about hydrogen and the hydrogen hybrids? We've hydrogen hybrid vehicles running on test in China at the moment. It's a coach, and its range is about 1,800 kilometres. It's incredibly efficient, and you know, its byproduct is what? H2O. So the future for me is, well, I intend to keep going as long as I possibly can. Retirement often used to frighten me, because because, people would say you have to retire at 65 or 67 or whatever. I have absolutely no intention of retirement. Retirement for me is no, thanks. I don't even like holidays. Never mind retirement. But I think I have the opportunity now to delay that. And it is inevitable, I suppose, someday that will happen. But I intend to delay it as long as possible, Jack.
Yeah. Well, also, just going back to that point, with regards to kind of the future as well, you kind of touched upon the the hydrogen as well, and the fact that it uses water. Do you see any change in legislation coming soon? Do you see any government grants or schemes that might enable companies such as yourself to kind of get and implement this technology in a more proficient way?
As regards government grants and schemes, okay, let's realistically have a lot of people out there paying a lot of lip service to protecting the environment and changing people's attitudes towards using electric vehicles. You got to make some incentives out there for people to move into this. It's an expensive piece of machinery in the short term, so to get it in and get it running. But people will actually see then that this is so efficient and it's just so good. So let's have a look at the grants. Well, first of all, it's the end users who begin it. We're not looking for grants here because we would look at that as investment in the future in our products. But it's the end user. You've got to put something in there to help him on that journey that's realistic. And at least look at the possibility of, because we're paying penalties into Europe anyway, for the fact that we're failing to meet carbon targets. So why not try and encourage Europe to say, well, let's try to do some of this fine. Let's try and ring fence some of this and allow us to offset some of that in a grant system. But you also have to look at what's done in London with congestion charges. People unfortunately need the penalty in there as well. To say that there's something there. If I go in and I create this green area and I'm penalised for going in with a diesel vehicle, I can save money then by using alternative fuels, whether it's gas, electricity, hydrogen, whatever is coming along the line. You've got to put the incentives there if you're serious about it. And if you look at the public transport, electric vehicles are available. But what do? We still buy diesel buses for Dublin. Incredible. To call it a hybrid, but unfortunately it has such a ridiculously low range. It's not even close to being something that would make a difference.
So do you think a lot of people kind of fear this change? People are maybe too set in their way. I know you touched on just Dublin Bus there, just for an example. But do you think there's a kind of element of fear and apprehension of moving towards these?
Go back to the invention of the motor car. You had a guy walking in front of it with a red flag. Of course there's fear. There's fear in everything that changes. No matter what happens out there. Because whether it's the energy suppliers, like the oil companies have a fear that they're going to start losing money. Countries that produce fossil fuels, again, they've nothing to replace it. Of course there's a fear. It's human nature. But if we're taking it serious in the impact that we have on the environment for future generations, unfortunately those decisions now have to be made. And some of those decisions are tough. And it's up to people, the leaders, really, and that's a true leader. True leaders make tough decisions. But you got to bring people on with you. You got to ensure that it's not just a dictatorial decision that said, right, we're going to do this, and whether you like it or not, that's going to happen. You got to get people to embrace the change and understand the change and make it easy for them to change. The technology is here. The vehicles are here. All they have to do is figure out how they can put them into and a lot of companies, our market in the UK, of course, it's much bigger than Ireland. But you should see the difference in the way the companies embrace EV. Our biggest sales at the moment are EV.
Well, John, I just want to leave it on that point. I really, really enjoyed that, and thank you very much for contributing to this discussion.
Well, listen, it's very kind of you to ask me to join you this morning, Jack. We're all very busy, and I suppose the message we have to say: keep your head down, keep focused on what you're doing. There's things outside our control that's going to influence and have an impact on our businesses, and we just got to make sure that we do our best, watch what we're doing, be sharp, be ready to respond quite quickly, and after that, then a lot of it's in the lap of the gods.